Hey, Algebra 2 students, this is Mrs. Tran-Bloom. Okay, so this is now our notes on factoring trinomials. Okay, so let's go through some vocabs really quickly. The first one is the word trinomial. Whoops. And as you know already from 2.1, trinomial just means we have three terms, right? And now some of you guys remember this from Algebra 2. I'm sorry, we are in Algebra 2. Some of you guys remember this from Algebra 1. A quadratic expression, okay? The difference between an expression and an equation is there has to be an equal sign in an equation. But since we don't have an equal sign, this is called an expression. This is ax squared plus bx plus c. As you can see here, wait, a, b, and c are all real numbers, okay? From 2.1, the GCF is going to be the greatest common factor. Now, the word factor, it's going to be a number or an algebraic expression that divides another one perfectly, aka without a remainder. And then a common factor, just like the greatest common factor, a common factor is just a number or an expression that all the terms in the polynomial has in common, okay? So here are the steps to factor your trinomials. Now I have it spelled out right here. It says, if you have another way of factoring that works consistently, please feel free to use it. This is just a step-by-step way of factoring if you don't already know it from your Algebra 1 class. Now I'm going to show you this method in two different ways. Now I know many of you guys factor by guess and check. Please keep on doing that if that's your system, okay? Step by step, here we go. Step number 1, factor out the GCF if we have any, okay? So I'm gonna go through each one. You have examples 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the fifth one's gonna ask you to write it out in words, okay? And we'll talk more about that when we get down to the question below. Factor completely. All right, let's go and read the guidelines really quickly. It says here, factor out the GCF if we can, okay? And then step number 2, write your trinomial in order from the highest power to lowest. And then the first 3 steps is really no math. It just really identify A, B, and C. So not heavy math. So if we look at this one, this is a 1 in the front, okay? So the power, this is the power of 2, power of 1, and then there's no x here. That means power of 0. So it's already in the highest power to lowest power. Let's see if we can find the GCF. Well, 1, it's already that you can't really do anything with 1. 5, it's already a prime number. 14 students is 2 times 7. So right now we cannot factor out anything except a 1. So with that said, there's no GCF besides a 1 that we can factor out. So next step, it says, okay, well, identify A, B, and C, okay? Remember, a quadratic expression is ax squared, ax squared plus bx plus c. So the variables, students, if you look at these right here, the variables will always going to be x squared in the front, the x is right here, and the last is going to be your constant with no x at all. So that means your a, b, and c are the leading coefficient here of each term, okay? So that's going to be your a, b, and c. So a is 1, b is -5, and c is going to be a -14. So we have done the first 3 steps. Make a product dash sum chart for all factor pairs of a times c. So let's look at a times c, which is 1 times, oops, this is supposed to be -14. 1 times -14 is going to give us -14. So it says, okay, make a product slash a times c, okay? And that's going to be -14 for this particular question. So what are all the factors that will give us 14? So let's start with -14 times 1. Definitely -14, right? 14 times -1. That will also give us a product of -14. 2 times -7. Totally 14. And then negative 2 times 7. Totally going to give us a negative 14, and that's all we can do, okay? Then it says, which of those set of factors is going to give us a sum of b? Guys, b is negative 5, so negative 5 goes here. Well, let's see. Is negative 14 plus 1 equals negative 5? No way. And then how about 14 plus negative 1? Not negative 5, so not happening. Now 2 plus negative 7. Yes, that right there is what we're looking for, okay? Normally, students, you would only have one set of factors that it's going to give you the value of b. Now, if we go to the last one, negative 2 plus 7, this is a positive 5, not negative 5, so we can't keep that one. So only this is what we're looking for. All right, let's read on, okay? Rewrite your original expression, okay? Now I'm going to show you guys, now that you make your chart, we're going to factor by grouping or using the box method. So first I'm going to show you guys factor by grouping method, okay? Grouping method. You listen to both. And then you're going to write down the method that it's easier for you, okay? And then over here, I'm going to do box method. Whichever method you are going to use, just use it all the time. Grouping method, we're going to copy down the first term only here, okay? We're going to copy down the last term, space it out. In the middle, we need to have negative 5x, but we know we can break that up to 2x plus negative 7x or 2x minus 7x, okay? So we're going to break it down to 2x plus a negative 7x. Remember, this needs to add up to equal that b, okay? Now, because we do have 4 terms, we can now factor by grouping, which you guys already know how to do it. Now, some of you said, well, the plus and a minus in the middle, can I just change it to a minus? Yes, of course, okay, that like that. So factor by grouping, meaning that we're gonna make the first 2 terms, okay, like this, and then see if we can take out the GCF from the first 2 terms. They both have an x in common. Remember, when you factor out, that means you're really dividing by x like this. So that means we are going to have x squared divided by x is x. 2x divided by x is now 2. So that's what's happening. Now over here, if this is a negative, remember students, we take out the negative sign here. They both have 7 in common, so we're going to take out a negative 7. So just like that, we are going to divide each term by negative 7. Okay, so this is going to leave us with x, okay, negative 14 divided by negative 7 is a positive 2. Always check these 2 factors out. They are common, so that means it's a common factor. That means you can take that out. So we take that out. Remember, we talked about factoring, right? Taking it out means factoring, and factoring is like dividing. So if we divide each of this right here by what we're factoring out, this is going to allow us to say, okay, reduce, 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 reduce. So that means we're left with x minus 7. So this right here, students, box it up. If you have a highlighter, highlight that. Those are the 2 factors for our original trinomial of x squared minus 5x minus 14. Now, let's do the box method. A box, just like what we said, is similar to our Algebra 2 tiles concept. The first box, students, we are going to copy down the first term. Okay, so in the original, the last box, we will copy down the last term. So x squared, okay, so x squared, negative 14. Now we have 2 blank boxes. Remember, we still need to fill this in, the negative 5x, but this time, the negative 5x is going to come from this chart again, which is 2x and a negative 7x. No, it does not matter which one you put where, as long as you can switch them around. Okay, the negative 7x could be on the top right, and the 2x can be in the bottom left. Then we are just going to look at these. okay? And we're going to say, okay, those two terms has an x in common. If we factor out an x, we are left with an x plus 2, because that's a positive 2x that we wrote down, okay? It's an area method, okay? Remember, an area of a rectangle is length times width, okay? Some of you said, well, isn't this a width and this a length? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Side, base times height, right? Any one of those, right? Now, on the bottom two, if we look at these bottom two right here, think of that as a rectangle again. If that's your area, negative 7x minus 14 is the area, we can factor out a negative 7. That means we're going to divide this by negative 7, divide it by negative 7. That's going to give us x, and then negative 14 divided by negative 7 is positive 2. So if we look at the rectangle as a whole, like big rectangle as a whole here, okay, the dimension on the top need to be the same as the dimension on the bottom, and they are both x plus 2. Well, since this is a rectangle, students, the dimension on the right side, okay, need to be the same as the left side. So if we look at these two right side boxes, okay, as you can see, they both have a 2 in common, so we can factor out 2. If we factor out a 2, this will give us x, right? And negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Hence, this right, whoa, okay, well, I guess that will be the color. This right here should really match that as well. So when we write our factors, factor is two expressions multiplying another. We can write x plus 2, okay, length times width, like that, as an area. Some of you said, well, can I write x minus 7 times x plus 2? Yes, you can, because remember, multiplication, okay, is commutative. You can write in the front or you can write in the back. So as you can see, these are two different methods. Listen to both first and then decide which one you like best. So example 2 says x squared plus 7x plus 12. Remember the first GCF, there's a 1 in the front here. So 1 common, but a 1, okay? And the 12 doesn't have any variable x, and they are already in order from highest power to lowest. So there's really not much now. So we're going to go straight to listing out what the values of your coefficients are. A is this little guy right here, so that's 1. B is positive 7, and C is going to be your 12. Remember, we want to write A times C, okay? So that's 1 times 12, which is 12. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to write your A times C value here. And the B value goes right here, okay, which is 7. So what are the factors that will give us 12? 1 times 12 is 12, but 1 plus 7, 1 plus 12 is not 7. That's what I meant to say. So not that one. And then we got what, 2 times 6, but 2 plus 6, not 7, okay? And then next is 3 times 4, which is 3 plus 4 equals 7. So this is the one that we want. Now 4 times 3 will work too, but it doesn't really matter because in product, in multiplying, right, it's commutative. So 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. So now these are the two numbers that we like. Now, just like earlier, we can start out writing the first term first. This is factor by grouping. The 12 last, okay? Notice how I'm giving myself some space. This is 7x. So we are going to take these right here and we will write it 3x plus 4x. That is going to give us 7x. They have to be the same as our original. Then here we can factor by grouping just like you have done prior. Those first two terms, okay, they have in common. I'm going to use a different color because it's fun. X is what they have in common, and divide each side by x. So that's going to be x here plus 3, okay. These right here is a plus sign, so we would take out a plus. And then they both have 4 in common, so that means we will factor out a 4. 4x divided by 4 is going to be x. 12 divided by 4, it's going to give us a positive 3. We always have to see if these two factors are identical. And if they are identical, we factor those out. Okay, you factor them out, mean we're dividing. And so that's a factor. We write them right here. Then we are left with an x plus 4, and then these are our two factor. Whoop, whoop. Now I'm also going to do the box method here one more time. I think after this, I'm just gonna pick one of the methods, okay? So the box method, make 4 boxes. Remember, the first box is always the first term in order. The last is a positive 12. Remember, these two terms right here, they go in any order you want, as long as you have those as a positive, because they do need to make up to be positive 7x. Okay, so we are going to factor out these two boxes. That means x is what they have in common. We are left with an x and a positive 3. Next, we will factor out the bottom two x's. Bottom two boxes, I meant. Looks like they are going to give us 4. Positive 4 is what they have in common. And if we divide this by positive 4 and by positive 4, we are going to have x plus 3 in common. Remember, these two factors, they need to be the same for us to know that they are going to work. So we can write x plus 4. Remember, area is length times width or base times height. You can write one over the other. One can go in the front and the other can go in the back. Remember, these two, doesn't matter the method. And if you do guess and check, that's okay too. Here's our example 3. It says 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay, so guys, let's check for GCF, okay? Looks like we don't have an x in common, but let's check the numbers. 4 is going to be 2 times 2. 5 is 5 times 1, and 6 is 2 times 3. None of these is going to be in common for all of them. So the GCF right now is still 1. So we're going to list out A, it's 4. Okay, remember, it's always ax squared plus bx plus c. And then b is going to be a negative 5, and c is going to be a negative 6, okay? We want to do a times c, which is going to be 4 times negative 6, which is going to be a negative 24, because we do want to put it on our chart, negative 24. We want to find two numbers, multiplying together equals negative 24, and add up equals our negative 5. So let's start with negative 1 times 24. That's not going to add up equals negative 5. And even a negative 24 times 1, not going to add up to equal to negative 5. So I'm going to go to 2, okay? 2 times 12, okay? One of it's going to be negative. Remember, in mathematics, if when you're adding and the answer has to be negative, meaning that the largest number's got to be negative. So that will give us negative 24. But 2 plus negative 12, not a negative 5. So that's not going to work either. Next, I'm going to move on to 3, okay? So let's see. 3 times negative 8, okay? So that's 3 plus negative 8. That is definitely negative 5. Woo! Okay, these are the two that we're interested in. I'm going to, the next couple questions, I'm only going to do the box method. Students, if you like your factoring by grouping, you go and do that. I'm not going to stop you. If you like factoring by guess and check, you do that. Whatever method is more comfortable to you, you use it. Okay, first box is the first term. Last box is the last term, which is negative 6. Remember, we have to make sure our remaining two boxes equals negative 5x. So that means we're going to write positive 3x and then a negative 8x. When we add them together, that would definitely be negative 5x. So first two boxes, let's see what they have in common. We can take out an x for sure. So if we factor out an x, that means we're dividing an x. So that's going to be 4x here and positive 3. The next two boxes, here we go. Let's see what we can factor out. They're both negative, so we know we can definitely factor out a negative 2. If we divide this by negative 2, we are going to end up with a positive 4x and a positive 3. These two right here, guys, they have those in common. That means we are doing it right. So the area of the whole box is going to be length times width or base times height, however you want to call it. So it's going to be 4x plus 3 times x minus 2, and box that up. Example 4 says 3x squared plus 12x minus 15. Okay, remember, first step is check for GCF. So let's this is 3 times 1. This is going to be 3 times 4. This is going to be 3 times 5. Oh, look, they all have a 3 in common. The 15 doesn't have an x, so we know there's no variable, but the GCF is definitely a 3. Okay, so we will start with the 3, and then we're going to see what's left over. So if we factor the 3, there'll be 1x squared left. Okay, 4x left. And negative 15, guys, divided by 3 is going to be a negative 5. So we are going to end up with a negative 5 left. And then we just talked about 1x squared, aka x squared. And then this is going to be an addition of 4x. So these are them. Since we have a GCF, students, we know the final answer. I'm going to box it up in the bottom here. The GCF will be in the very, very front. Now, but here's what I want you guys to pay attention. We will continue to factor out these right here. Okay, so our A is 1 because right here is 1. Our B is going to be 4, and our C is going to be negative 5. Remember, we have to make a chart to where A times C. So that's going to be 1 times negative 5 equals negative 5. That's going to be our chart right here. Then our B value, we have to find 2 factors to add up to 4. So 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. 1 plus negative 5 is negative 4. That's not going to work. We want positive 4. But what if we do negative 1 times 5? That will give us negative 5. And a negative 1 plus 5, that's going to be 4. Woo! All right, that works, okay? So what we are going to do is we're going to keep these 2. I'm going to make the box. Okay, here we go. And first term in the box goes here. That's x squared. Last term goes here. Remember, we want the middle to be a positive 4x. So that means we're going to write negative 1x here and a positive 5x here. Okay. Factoring wise, so I'm going to take the first 2 boxes to see what they have in common. And they do have an x in common. Remember, a 1 could be written here if you want to. So if we divide this by x and this by x, students, we will have an x left. Negative 1x divided by x is negative 1. Okay. Now, we're going to take the next, let's do rainbow. Next 2 boxes on the bottom. They both have a 5 in common. If we divide this by 5, divide this by 5, that would be an x here. Negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. Are these 2 identical? If you said yes, that's great because that's what we really want. And then this is what we're going to have. And remember, we factor out positive 5. So the remaining 2 factors would be x plus 5, students, and x minus 1. So our final answer has 3 factors because a GCF is a factor. Okay, we have one more example. And this one is very different from what you guys have been looking at. It's still factoring, okay? But I want you guys now to write a whole paragraph using only words, okay? So it says here, for this example, write out how you would factor 4x squared plus 13x plus 3. You can only use words. Notice how the entire paragraph that I typed out here, you need to do this on your own, okay? No, you cannot copy word for word here, because if you do guess and check, you can write it out like that. If you use the box, then write it out in the box method. If you factor by grouping, then you should spell it out by grouping. But the first couple of things that I would like for you to always write is, first, I check for GCF. Since there's no GCF greater than 1, I make a chart where I'm trying to find 2 factors that multiply to equal 12. Remember, the reason I said 12 because the A times C is 12. Then add up to 13, which is my B value. Okay. Now, there could be some variations, but I would like for you to use the correct mathematical words or terminology. So what I've done here, I'm just rolling back up so you can see. What I've done here is sort of using all of these vocabulary right here. Okay, so use the word factor or factors, or I factor out, common factor, GCF, trinomial, exponents, any of those. So use the correct mathematical words. I found the 2 factors to be 12 and 1. Okay, then I make a box with 4 squares. So as you can see, I'm factoring by using the box method. The first square, I write down the first term, which is 4x squared. In the last box, I write down the last term, which is 3. Then the two boxes, I filled in the 12x and 1x. I factor out the common factor of 4x from the top two boxes. Then I write x plus 3 on the top since that is the remaining factor. Notice I'm using all the vocabulary. Then I look at the bottom two boxes and saw that I can only factor out a common factor of that the remaining factor is x plus 3. This matches the top factor, so I know I'm doing correctly. My final factors are 4x plus 1, and I'm using the quantity here, times x plus 3. So now if you use guess and check, spell that out in guess and check way. If you factor by grouping, then do that same way, okay?